Welcome to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast for club owners, operators, and fitness professionals. Each week, host Brian O'Rourke brings you an expert interview with a global influencer at the crossroads of fitness and technology. You gain the insights, tools, and inspiration you need to stay connected to the pulse for what matters most for your business in the age of exponential technologies.
Hello, listeners. Thanks for joining us here on the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. I hope your summer is going well because by now it's June, and I'm on the phone with a friend who's in Seattle right now, who I'll introduce momentarily. And down here in the New Orleans area, my home office, it is well into the 90s and very humid, so summer is truly arrived. So I hope you have a great summer. And again, thanks for joining us today. I have a friend who I've known for a number of years, John Ford. And John, for those that know John, and a lot of people do, he was really kind of a real innovator in the space, in the fitness space, starting out in technology with Virtual Active 13 years ago, John. And then, of course, many of you know him through his role and roles at Netpulse, ultimately becoming the president. And Netpulse grew quite a bit over the last number of years. And more recently, of course, John has become CEO of eGym North America, and through a recent transaction, I believe in March, with eGym and Netpulse, bringing those companies together. John, I'm so glad you're here. You've been a friend and colleague, a member of the Fitness Industry Technology Council, both during your days at Netpulse and more recently at eGym. We really appreciate all the things that you've done to the industry space. And I certainly have thank you, because I've been able to see you at the early morning speech Saturday at URSA. You were there. And then, in Europe, we've broken bread a few times. So what a pleasure to have you on the podcast today for our listeners.
Yeah, thanks very much, Brian. Enjoy being on the podcast. Looking forward to it.
Well, great. Well, thanks for making time. The thing about having people like you on the show, and for all the listeners that are there, is one of the things I really love about working in the space is talking with people like you. I recently had a long call 2 days ago with Garrett Marshall from Fitness on Demand, and I've had these kind of conversations with you, John, which are what's happening in the industry, what does technology truly mean, where are we going, what are the real pain points, what are the real opportunities. And that's why I'm excited to have you on the show. We talked recently about the idea of reaching more people and what technology can do in the space to achieve that end. Can we talk a little bit about that? Could you share your thoughts on that topic for our listeners as we get started?
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. So this is actually probably the most important topic for me. It's one of the reasons why I'm as excited as I am about the transaction with eGym and the new role building the business up here in eGym in North America. And it's how do we use technology to get people more fit, to get people who aren't fit today fit. And I think that if you look back on the last 20, 30 years of the industry at commercial fitness suppliers, I really feel like most of the focus of our industry has been on helping people who are already in our gyms, helping people who are already at least minimally competent, try a new workout or do something slightly better. And I'm not saying that there's not value in that. There absolutely is. We need to keep coming up with new programs and new products to keep the people in the gyms excited. But there hasn't been nearly as much focus on, what we're doing for the other 80%. How are we really aggressively attacking the people who aren't successful today with fitness, and kind of obvious reasons for that, right? It's a really challenging problem. But I'm mostly interested in that huge problem of how can we use technology to address the people that need the help the most.
Yeah, and when it comes down to that, and we're going to talk about some of our ideas recently with FitC and in your discussion on innovation, But when it comes to that, is it about how the user experience is designed? I mean, what are the barriers to that, in your opinion?
Yeah, the barriers are many. People are failing mostly for motivational reasons. I think is the primary barrier, and interface certainly plays into motivating people. The user experience that you create is going to be huge in terms of impacting whether someone stays motivated or not, and that's both software and general interaction experience that you're creating. I think that what interests me the most about what we're working on currently is that it's covering the full experience, software, hardware, everything, and creating an experience where the user doesn't need to know things. It's sort of like, the way I would put it is, when we're outside of the context of a gym, we seem to understand intuitively that, for example, when you download a mobile app, it has to be completely frictionless and everything has to be crazy simple, or else no one's going to use that app. We get that. Right. But once we get into the gym, it's like we have all of these really ridiculously packed with friction experiences. Like a lot of gyms that I've been into, it's difficult to even book a trainer, even if you want one. And then the idea that you're going to walk into a gym and someone's going to give you some pointers on a beginner workout, and you're just going to walk out on the workout floor and do that. Or even if you have some videos that they're providing you via a mobile app or something, that the average person is going to take a mobile app out of their pocket, be watching videos on the gym floor and be mimicking them. I think you're really talking about a small subset of highly confident people who are going to be capable of doing that, not being intimidated by that. And so, working in the hardware angle, really creating a totally seamless experience where the user can just sit down, swipe in on the equipment, and push or pull. We think that's how simple it has to be for a total beginner, the average total beginner, to get into it.
Yes, exactly. And there's so many disparate parts to your point. We did work, of course, with the chains of clubs that we are involved with, and with certain well-known brands, where we had determined, when it comes to the issue of frictionless, there were 9 steps that had to be taken by an individual to actually get a personal trainer. And
right.
That's real. It's like, how much harder can you make it? So that is real world. And you were at the talk at Ursa, that I gave, and that's why I think that I call it the execution engine. Is having the ability to collect data, having enterprise systems with appropriate automation, balanced by the right kinds of human capital. If you're not looking at your business as that back end that's necessary to drive the user experience that you're kind of describing, and it'll come in different forms, but the idea of frictionless, the idea of ease of use, the ease of transaction, I don't know how else you're going to compete in the next few years.
I completely agree, 100%.
Yeah, so that is a big opportunity. And so, in looking at eGym, and of course I had a chance to spend some time with you and Philip in New York last summer. It wasn't quite as hot as it is today here in New York then, but
right.
Visiting with you all. Tell me a little bit about what eGym actually does, so that the listeners can understand it.
Sure. Yeah. So it's essentially, the easiest way to describe it is it's a line of strength training equipment that's digital, electric motor resistance, and it makes it incredibly easy for people to do workouts, optimal workouts based on their goal. So you usually configure it in a circuit of 9 pieces. So imagine 9 of these digital strength machines, and a beginner is going to be set up on the circuit. 1 15-minute onboarding that usually gets integrated into a free orientation workout that everyone offers anyway. And then after that onboarding, each machine is going to already know, because because the machines strength test the member. Each machine's already going to know the maximum strength of the user on that exercise. It's going to know their range of motion, which differs per person, of course. It's going to know their seat height, etc. And so after that onboarding, the second time the user comes into that circuit, they're literally just going to swipe their RFID band on the console, sit down, and either push or pull. They don't need to know anything. They don't need to think about anything. They're just following a curve on the screen, and they're getting an optimal workout for their specific goal. And that's the sort of automation, personalization that I think you're often talking about, Brian, when we're trying to figure out how to empower frictionless user experiences.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a very, very interesting concept, and it does fit all the buckets for what you and I have been talking about for a number of years. And so, having worked with Netpulse for years, having been a founder of your original company, and being at the cusp of technology, because in your background, and I know you had some time before you were in the fitness industry commercially, but you've been pretty much at that epicenter of technology adoption over the last decade. We talked before about adoption and the market and operators. Do you think that today people are confused as to how to navigate the path to a new operating model because they're not sure of what there's so many different technology paths to go down? What do you think are the big challenges and opportunities around adoption in general?
And just to make sure we're on the same page, you're speaking about adoption of technology by club operators?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So I think we've identified a bunch of those, and on the Netpulse side of the business, which I'm still involved in, of course, we actually have some current initiatives attacking these problems. But first we have to start with the reality that the fitness industry is not a technology industry, right? We're not in the business of building technology. We're in the business of fitness. And so when it comes to best practices, implementations of cutting edge technology, they're typically going to be coming from the real innovation is going to be coming from outside of the industry. And concepts like, I know I hear you speak often of technologies like AI, for example. Innovation on AI is not going to be done primarily by fitness industry companies, as we know. So, but there are a lot of barriers for club operators to adopt broader technologies from outside the industry, in that they, of course, need to be packaged for the industry by industry vendors. And they need to have sense made of them for fitness applications. And you're right. The result is, a lot of vendors providing point solutions for different specific issues. And it's just grown exponentially, the number of software vendors in the space, technology vendors in the space that are taking bits and pieces and offering them to customers. And then there's overlap between those various vendors as well. So I 100% agree. It gets very confusing. And that's a barrier in and of itself. But one thing that we're doing to attack that is, on the Netpulse side, we've launched the first of our consortiums. And what our consortium is essentially a bunch of brands, significant brands in this case, that have agreed to partner with each other, as well as with major outside of the industry technology companies, to bring cutting edge technology into fitness applications together. And that tackles a few of the barriers that I was going to mention. One is the cost of such projects. So obviously, you can tackle cost through collaboration and shared costing, and that's one of the things happening here. Another is just aggregating enough scale in the fitness industry to get the interest from big companies outside of the industry. It's a pretty fragmented industry. Even a big fitness industry company is small compared to an Apple, obviously, or a Google. So I think that's going to be effective there as well in terms of getting big brands to work with fitness industry players. So I'm excited. It's an initiative I'm excited about. I think it's going to help us tackle a couple of the big problems.
Yeah, I agree. And, the board at FITSE, we've convened on your idea on this and trying to help and work together in that because, it's the, like Gary Vaynerchuk says, the clouds and the dirt. There's all these theories of what these things could be and do. And to your point about the barriers, I think you have to demonstrate by doing. And that takes a lot of different aspects. But, innovation isn't about theory. It's about actually applying these things and then having a clear roadmap for others to say, hey, this works. This is, versus fits and starts. And you're going, because when you look back at, who I've considered, for a number of years to be one of the guru genius brands at SoulCycle, when you talk about user experience in the studio market, how they deployed mobile, how they made the experience very straightforward, simple, clear, and they extracted a huge premium by being able to execute that model. That's a great example. Now booking classes is a lot more mainstream, but when they were doing it well in the beginning, it wasn't so mainstream, and they really took advantage of it. So there are many other examples of things, like some of what you were discussing with the eGym product and others, that can revolutionize how these operating models function and what user experience is really experienced and put out as a result.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're really excited about the consortium and the ability to make innovation, really happen in concrete ways by grouping together interested parties. I think when you mentioned the SoulCycle case, and I agree, they did a fantastic job, and they invested a ton to do that, right? They took a risk, and I think that's another one of the big barriers in our industry to innovation is a lot of the leaders of our club operators on the technology side, they have a lot of responsibility outside of innovation. Right, keeping the lights on is a big job for a lot of these folks, and the budgets around innovation, doing totally new things, the appetite for risk, a lot of times just isn't there. And I think that's one of the main reasons why we don't see as much concrete innovation among big brands, among fitness brands in general. And I think that the consortium is a path to potentially do that. Right, so excited about it.
I am too. It's always a balance between the clouds and the ideas and the theory and the practice. But boy, when you can take those theories and actually apply them in real world ways, I think that's where the rubber hits the road. So I'm excited about it too, and I'm very happy to work with you on that and appreciate your drive around that, because I think we share a lot of beliefs in that the opportunity is so giant. It's really talking about the market that's not been reached yet. And I really believe and agree with you that it's going to be through innovation like this that we can actually expand the market, extensively. So, John, one last kind of question. What other trends in the tech side do you see? I mean, obviously, user experience, platforms. What other things or key trends that you think we should be keeping an eye on in your view?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that's going on now is the digitalization of the gym floor in itself, right? And so this is one of the focuses of eGym that I didn't reference earlier in the call because I was speaking about the equipment at that time. But the eGym cloud is another major component of eGym strategy, and it's just the idea that everything in the club needs to be connected. And it's kind of crazy, actually, in 2018, how still disconnected a lot of the devices and applications in our ecosystem are. It's a big problem to solve, and I think one of the trends that I'm seeing is towards that connectivity that I think is really critical. It's happening amongst vendors that are getting more connected to one another. It's happening with real use cases now being created out of that connectivity. I think a good example of that is what our partners Precor and Matrix are doing on their cardio consoles. allowing third-party vendors to build, powerful applications directly into their consoles, these sorts of things. And so a lot going on there, and I think it's an incredibly important discussion, and it's something that needs to continue and will continue.
Yeah, I agree. It's that whole experience. Without that, it's very hard to deliver on the experience that we're talking about, right?
Exactly. It's really the plumbing, right? It's the foundational layer that we can talk about, AI and innovation and all these cool things that you and I want to do. But if the plumbing isn't there, then none of it works, right? So I think it's always a challenge for me because I like to think forward as well, but to keep one foot in today, which is what's the very next step I need to take to actually get to 3 years down the road, right? And right now for us as an industry, that next step is we have to get our stuff connected. We shouldn't be buying equipment in 2018 that can't tell you, for example, how many hours of usage it got, right? Or right. Who's on it and get their data to them. That shouldn't be where we're at.
No, it shouldn't. And there's a lot coming up with capabilities to make that happen. And I agree. Without the plumbing, it's going to be really hard to actually do those things. So, John.
That's right.
Yeah. In the coming months, John, are you going to be attending and presenting at any particular events that our audience should be aware of?
Let's see. So in the coming month, I'm doing events all the time. The next one that I'm speaking at is at CanFit Pro.
I'll be there with
Steve Groves. Yeah, we're on that panel. We're on that panel together. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Steve Groves, the CIO of Good Life, putting together a little event there. So I'm looking forward to that. See you there.
Me too. That's going to be fun. I like going up there and seeing Patch and Maureen and of course Steve and the whole team up there. That's always a great event. I love Toronto. It's a great spot. So I look forward to seeing you there. John, any final thoughts you want to share with our audience at all? And again, we're so grateful for you spending time.
I think I really appreciate you having me on. I would just leave everyone with a final thought that's I kind of concluded with there, which is that I think the next step for us is everyone needs to be thinking about connectivity inside of their facilities, because you are not going to be aware today, what the payoff of that connectivity is going to be, but over the coming years it's going to be there. And if you don't install that plumbing, you're going to be missing out on a lot of opportunities over the next 5 years. That's my opinion.
I agree. Like I always say, the best and greatest products and services in our industry space have not been created yet. And in order to create those experiences, in order to deliver those experiences, we've got to do the things that you're talking about to build it in. John, I'm always excited to chat with you. Great respect. Appreciate your support of the Fitness Industry Technology Council. And if I don't see you before, I look forward to shaking your hand here at CanFit Pro in the coming weeks.
Awesome. Thanks again, Brian.
Hi, everyone. This is Brian O'Rourke again. Thanks for listening to the podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. The podcast is brought to you by the Fitness Industry Technology Council, as well as my company, Videri Ventures, Moon Mission Media, and others. We hope you enjoyed the content. Please feel free to share it and join us again soon when we bring to you another leader in the fitness space talking about technology and what it means to our industry. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you again very soon.